We've got a lot to react to because we've got playoff rankings and we have the actual playoff. And listen, there was a lot of controversy surrounding this thing, so let's jump right into it because everybody in college football talking about the 4-team playoff and really the big news, Florida State dropping out of the top 4 as an undefeated 13-0 and not making the playoffs. So this is what the committee gave to us after Bama's big upset over Georgia in the SEC championship game. Obviously, Michigan number 1, Washington moves up to 2, Texas at 3, and Bama at 4. Now, let's just go back really quickly. And last Sunday, when I saw Texas land at 3, that's when I realized, okay, Florida State is in trouble here. There's no doubt, because if they would have been included, it would have been based on the merit of their undefeated record, and they would have been grouped with the other undefeateds. Okay, so they would have been 3, and then Texas would have been 4. That's how I say it, because Texas got the win over Alabama. So as soon as Texas was at 3, I knew Florida State's in trouble, and sure enough, bam, there's the Crimson Tide at 12-1, the SEC champion, after that big win over Georgia, and Florida State is 5. Now, couple of thoughts. The first thought is, what didn't make sense to me is that if you're telling me that Florida State was just not good enough because of the Jordan Travis injury, which is basically what they wanted to tell us, then they're probably not better than Georgia. So why were they at 5 in the first place? Because the Georgia eye test will tell me, even though they lost against Alabama after 29 straight wins, that they would have been better than Florida State because of the Jordan Travis injury. So a little contradiction, but listen, that's a bit of a digression, if you will. Let's take a look at what the committee was actually deciding on, because I'm a firm believer, as you know, that the committee takes the path of least resistance. Okay? Now, they can talk about a lot of different factors, but that's really the factor that they look at. And if you're saying no to one of those 3 teams, the undefeateds are in, now you're debating Texas, Alabama, and Florida State. You got the criteria up, which I'll get to in just a moment. But the first thing you've got to realize is, like, what am I saying no to? What's the downside here? Well, if you say no to Alabama, you're saying no to the SEC. You're saying no to Greg Sankey, the most powerful man in college football. You're saying no to Nick Saban and Alabama. It's not just the SEC, which has been dominant during the playoff era and in the BCS era, by the way, I might add. But it's also the SEC school. It's Alabama. It's Nick Saban, maybe the greatest, if you're asking me, the greatest coach in the history of the sport. The team that just ended Georgia's 29-game win streak. They're the SEC champion. That is a hard decision to make. Probably a bridge too far. Well, guess what? You can't say no to Texas because they beat the team I was just describing in Tuscaloosa by double digits. So that's a really hard no. And then you get to Florida State. And you get to Florida State, and yes, they're undefeated. And yes, they're deserving. And everyone believes that that's the case. But they've got their quarterback out. Jordan Travis, their most important player. Even as good as the defense has been, their most important player, Jordan Travis, is not available. Now we go to the criteria. And the criteria allows the committee to take that path of least resistance because this provides, hate to say it this way, but an excuse. Let me just read some of these points here. Obviously, conference championship, strength of schedule, which favors Alabama in a big way, comparative outcomes, common opponents, things like that. And then we get to the last point, and this is the one that you really have to pay attention to. The committee is sitting there, and they're saying no to Florida State. Why? Because they've got a criteria sitting in front of them that states other relevant factors, such as unavailability of key players and coaches that may have affected a team's performance during the season, or, important here, likely will affect its postseason performance. So why did the committee say no to Florida State? Jordan Travis. I hate that. I feel bad for Jordan Travis. I feel bad for Florida State, but that's what the committee did. And the thing about it is they were going to be immediately validated, the committee, based on the betting lines that we got in the games that they created. The playoff games, tight matchups. That Michigan-Alabama, basically a coin flip. Texas-Washington, 4-point spread. Meanwhile, Georgia and FSU, they're going to face off in a bowl game, and immediately, what's the spread? 14. Bulldogs by 14. Validation in some respects. So did we get a better playoff this way? Yes, probably. Is the system also broken, and does this suck for the Florida State players? Yes. That's also the case, and I think both can be true. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.